Hi, I'm Bradley,
And I'm Brendan.
and on today's episode of Story Proof, we're going to talk about The Princess Bride from 1987.
Yeah, the internet's favorite movie, like one of like two major cult classics everybody loves.
Dude, you know what? Honestly, because we talked a little bit about it before we started recording, when I think of cult classic movies, like movies that have developed a cult following, this is literally, number one or two that I always fucking think of.
Except you can't really think of it as a cult following anymore because like this movie is everywhere. It's commonly regarded as like one of the greatest films ever made.
Yeah,
Like,
this one definitely did a. Like when it first came out, its initial release, it was kind of well regarded, but did not make a lot of money. I think it made like twice its budget. But now it is, very commonly referred to. It's one of the greatest films of all time. I think it's got like a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah.
I will go ahead and say, in my personal humble opinion, this is one of those movies that constantly you hear people talk about such and such being the greatest movie of all time, the greatest TV show of all time, the greatest whatever of all time.
Yeah.
And then you go watch it or listen to it and you're like, it's fine. It's okay. It's whatever. This, I think, holds up. I think this is every bit as good as people make it out to be.
Yeah. I was genuinely surprised that it held up as well as it did when I first watched it because I only watched it for the first time about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
A year and a half. You're like the movie person.
I know. But
A year and a half ago?
It's one of those ones that I always figured, I'll get to it eventually, but it wasn't. It's hyped up so much on the internet. There's no way it can possibly be that great and that fun and everything else. It is. it it is one of those movies genuinely that I would say could not be remade because you cannot recapture the magic in the bottle that this movie has.
Dude, this is absolutely one of those films that when you watch it, you're like, they just don't make movies like this anymore.
Yeah.
There really is something. I know that I recently rewatched The Three Musketeers that has like Kiefer Sutherland, Oliver Platt, and Charlie Sheen in it. And the whole time I'm watching that, I'm like, there is just an X factor. There's just a feeling to this that they just don't. It's gone.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. Not to say that films today are bad or they're not well made, or absolutely not that. But there is something about some movies that they just have that magical feeling to them.
Yeah.
That you just don't quite see that often anymore.
Yeah.
But this has got it. I mean, this movie, the casting is freaking amazing. The writing is so fucking good.
Oh yeah, that's the key. I will say I love Rob Reiner as a director. I love most of his films. The cinematography in this is not like anything groundbreaking. You're just getting a lot of wide shots, medium shots. It's very basic in the way that it's shot, minus a few. Like, there's a few really great shots, like the one where Inigo is like, "Point me the way, Father," to find the like where it's slowly tilting down and the sun comes up behind him and it's shrouding him in light. But the cinematography is very basic, but it doesn't need to be anything flashy. In this, because you have two things that make for a great film. You have a great script written by William Goldman, who is one of the greats. Mm-hmm. He wrote the book that this was based on, so it helps. And then you have great performances from the entire cast, from top to bottom.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that you can tell it's got a fantastic script, and the delivery on so many of these lines. I love it when a movie, it makes me kind of take a second after a line happens. I'm just like, damn, that's a good line. This movie has like 50 of those. Yeah. There are so many moments where I'm just like, God, that's a good line.
Not just the ones that you see in all the memes and everything else online, too.
Yeah, this is one of the most quotable movies of all time.
Yeah.
Maybe the most.
Yeah.
There are so many things in this that I'm just like, God, my mom knew some quotes of this without ever having seen the movie. The first time he goes, "Inconceivable," she's like, "Oh my God, that's where that came from?"
Yeah. Which is even more funny considering your mom's feelings about this movie.
Yeah, so I'm going to let you guys know, my mom does not enjoy this movie. I think she needs to watch it again.
Yeah.
Because it should be right up her alley. She loved recognizing some people that she knew. She thought Andre the Giant was fake, which... fair. If you didn't know who he was and you see him, the first scene you see him in, he puts his hand behind her head and you're like, wow, his hand is the size of like her torso.
Yeah.
When you hear his voice, it is so low and resonant. sounds like it could be a fake voice. And yeah, he's just so gigantic. She's like, that can't be a real person.
Oh, it was. It was.
And I was like, she's like, what's his name? I was like, Andre the Giant. She's like, oh, they call him the Giant? It's like, wouldn't you?
That was his wrestling moniker.
Yeah,
yes.
like, Jesus, this dude is huge. But no, she did not enjoy most of the movie, which hurts my feelings a little bit.
The thing that blows my mind is that your mom absolutely loves Stardust. And
yeah, I can't explain that one.
And just like, I mean,
if you trash talk Stardust, I'm flipping this table.
No, Stardust is fantastic.
All right, good.
But it's just what the funny thing about The Princess Bride is that it is somehow simultaneously the greatest parody of fairy tale movies, but at the same time, it is the quintessential fairy tale movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like it's very much a satirical take on fairy tales, but at the same time, it is a fairy.
Yeah, it has all the tropes in it. It kind of lightly teases fun of them, but it does have so many of them that you're like, yeah, this is a great freaking example of what a good fantasy film should be.
So then when a true like fantasy film like Stardust comes up and somebody loves it, but then they say they don't like The Princess Bride, it's just funny to me. I don't know.
I can't tell you.
But it's like we always say, everybody likes what they like and everybody likes what they don't like.
Yeah.
Doesn't like what they don't like.
And I will say, we're going to talk more about it later, I love this movie. I mean, I adore this movie. There is one fucking scene in this movie that I hate. Oh my God, I hate it so fucking much. That scene is the reason I don't watch this movie more often. And that is the Billy Crystal scene as Miracle Max. It lasts for 45 hours. Oh my God, it is so unnecessarily long. It is way too much riffing. Too much, like, clearly there wasn't a script, and he's just... I'm fine with that. You know, we had this conversation earlier. If you put someone like Robin Williams in a movie, he doesn't need a script. He's motherfucking Robin Williams. He's going to be fine. I think Billy Crystal is funny. I do not think he is like a bad actor, doesn't do bad with lines, but it's too long. This movie is about an hour 38.
Yeah.
That scene takes so long that I'm like, please God, can we get back to the movie? The story thing they're doing there is important. Spoiler alert, it's bringing the main character back to life.
Yeah.
Well,
who
I would argue is the secondary main character. Inigo Montoya is the main character of this film. Motherfucker, this is his movie. And I have points to prove my point. I am right. He is the main character of The Princess Bride. 100%. We'll get there. But the Billy Crystal scene, it goes on so long, and it's just bullshit. It's just talking. I'm like, dude, just please, God, can we get back to the movie? We get it. It's Billy Crystal. Yay. Fucking keep going. Jesus. The funniest fucking thing to come out of that scene is when, like, a scene later, he's like, I need a cloak. And Andre the Giant immediately pulls it out and is like, will this work? And they're like, where did you get that from? Oh, I tried it on at Max's and it fits so well. He said I could keep it. That's the funniest fucking thing to come from that fucking scene. It's too long. It's too fucking long. What it reminds me of is, now I love Tyler Perry. I really like the Medea movies. I have been a fan since the first one came out. I love his plays. But the last maybe 3 or 4 movies, there's way too much time where you can tell they don't have a script. They just put a few funny people in a room and they let them go. And it's too fucking long of just people obviously improvising, bullshitting. It's too much, man. It's too fucking much. What he's saying, I think, is moderately funny, but it's just... Now I've talked too much about him talking too much. I don't know, man. That scene kills me. When I watch this movie, I fast forward through it. I think the funniest thing about that scene in the scene are his little wooden tweezers. I think those are cute because it's just a stick that he's like split in half, and that's what he holds the pill. Also, the pill is gigantic. Like, oh my God. It's a bad scene. Goes on too long. Way too long.
You feel better now that you got that out of your system?
A little bit, actually. I feel a weight has come off my shoulders. Right. By the way, just so you guys know, I usually have my cat in a back room when we record these. I didn't have time to put him up today, and I was like, you know what? Where'd you? So if you hear meowing or purring or he kind of grumbles sometimes, that's not us. That's not us making those noises. I mean, if we bump the table, maybe, but
Yeah, there's the occasional like bump of the table, but
yeah, if you hear a very deep meow, that's not us.
but yeah, I don't think this movie needs any more introduction than that. Should we just get into it?
I think so.
All right.
So when we start, we have a very young child played by Fred Savage.
Which
He is a baby. He's like 10.
yeah, this is like Wonder Years era Fred Savage. Like,
Dude,
this
he's so young, and you know this. The story has a remarkably simple setup: is that he's home sick. He's playing a baseball game. It is very old.
and his grandfather, played by Peter Falk,
Yep.
comes in, and he's gonna read him a story. Out
Yeah.
of the book.
The mom says, like, you know, your grandpa's here to read to you, and the boy's like, oh, really? Does he have to? And then the grandpa comes in, he's like, hello, and he's like waving his hands. I was like, oh my god, this is me. This is how I enter rooms. You gotta have a dramatic entrance. But it is a nice thing where he comes in, he says, I got a gift for you. And at first the grandson's like, what is it? It's a book. Oh god, do we really have to? And he said, like, I used to read this to your father when he was sick, and my father read it to me, and now I'm here to read it to you. And you're like, okay, it's kind of sweet.
Yeah, this used to be TV. This was TV when I was.
Yeah, that was a funny line. That was probably the first line where I'm like, ooh, that's a good line. He's like, yeah, when I was a kid, TV was books.
Yeah.
that was good. So the grandpa sits down and he starts reading the book, and he starts regaling us with the tale of The Princess Bride, a story about Inigo Montoya.
Yeah, so that
I was like, did you even catch that I said that?
I did. I caught it a second too late, but I caught it. So that's the end of the framing device, and we do come back to it a little bit a couple times throughout the story. But the main body of the story is telling this fairy tale, and we open on a farm where we have the Buttercup, not quite a princess yet, but
I have questions about that. It's dumb, but yeah, we have Buttercup.
it's a fairy tale.
It's dumb. She's played by Robin Wright, and
This was just about her first film role, I believe.
yeah, very young. She's
Yeah.
very young.
I barely recognize her from, honestly, I barely see, like, from Forrest Gump to this, I barely see it.
Is she Jenny?
Yes.
Holy fuck. I didn't know that.
She was also she's been in a lot of stuff, but that's one of her big roles. She was in House of Cards.
I did see that one.
So it's kind of funny you say that because in interviews, William Goldman has said in the past that they had a lot of trouble casting Buttercup. They didn't cast Robin Wright until
Like a week before they started shooting?
Yeah, like a week or two before shooting started. And they had auditioned actress after actress after actress. There's so many different names based on different sources and articles you read and everything else. But Robin Wright's agent had convinced her to come and meet William Goldman and Rob Reiner, the director of the film. And so she showed up at William Goldman's house, and she was just in like this plain white dress or something like that, like a sundress. And as the door opened, William Goldman says that the sun was cast behind her, and there was like this halo of light around her, and that was exactly how he imagined Buttercup to be. So that's how she got the part.
I literally imagined her at the door, seeing the sun was about to set just right, and just waiting, being like, "Okay, hold on. If I time this just right, I'm gonna get this job."
So that's what I think of when you talk about the eyes, because her eyes really are like the
Dude,
most striking
so
thing
blue
about her in this movie. But she is on this farm, and her favorite thing, according to the story, is to ride her horse every day. So there's a farmhand named Wesley who never speaks except for 3 words. When she gives him an order, he says to her, "As you wish."
I have issues with this, but we'll get there in a minute. I will say, so Wesley is played by Cary Elwes. He is so pretty in this first scene that I'm like, damn, dude, you're prettier than Buttercup. What the fuck? Because he has a mustache for the rest of the movie, and it's a little bit of like, because he's a pirate
Yeah.
later on. So I'm like, oh, it's a little bit of like a. I feel like it takes up, but man, this first scene, he is just baby face, blonde hair. I mean, he is so fucking pretty in this first scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cary Elwes is just a treat.
Yeah, one of my favorite sort of actors out there. He's almost always the supporting guy. He has a couple lead roles like with this. And
he's supporting in this. Inigo Montoya is the main character.
Co-main characters.
No. If you get a co-main character in this, it's gonna be Fezzik. It's not Wesley. They bring him back to life, okay? With fucking Billy Crystal. Wait, sorry, with Billy Crystal, not fucking Billy Crystal.
That would be
a plot twist, and I'm like, okay, maybe this scene can further the plot. Okay.
I'm assuming most people have seen this movie at this point. They know how this goes. As you wish means I love you. So they have
Which
this
is dumb. She realized one day that she loved him too, and it was beautiful. They have never spoken. She orders him around, and he says one sentence, and you're in love. I call bullshit.
It's a fairy tale.
I call bullshit. Also, there's no family here. She lives here by herself. Who the fuck is farming? Is it her? Is it him? Because she's a stable hand. Is she farming? Is he farming? There's not a farm. It's a house with a stable. Later on, it says something about she locked herself in her room. No, she's just in the house. There aren't rooms. It's a small fucking house. All right, I'm done.
It's a fairy tale.
That's the one thing where I'm like, There is a funny moment where it's a snap back to the kid and the grandpa as they're having their like, and she loved him. The kid's like, wait, grandpa. Is this a kissing book?
Yeah.
And the grandpa's pretty much just like, be quiet and listen.
Be quiet. I told you there's sports and stuff. You just gotta come.
Yeah. Yeah, the first note I have for this movie is how the fuck did they fall in love before they ever actually spoke a full fucking sentence to each other?
Because it's a fairy tale. In fairy tales, people have fallen in love with a lot less.
Yeah. Whatever. It's fine.
So anyway, eventually they, fall in love, but then Wesley goes off to seek his fortune so that he can pay his dowry
to who? Her dad?
I don't know, Brad.
Yeah, is it what the fuck? He is half of the residents of anyway. Go ahead.
So he goes off to seeks his fortune, gets killed by the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Womp womp.
So she becomes inconsolable for a time, and then at some point is made a princess and is betrothed to the Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah, they don't fucking explain that. Literally, she's a farm person in her one-room hut in the middle of fucking nowhere, and then cut 5 years later, she's engaged to the prince. And you're like, what the fuck happened in those 5 years? I swear to God, if you just fucking say it's a fairy tale, fuck you. We need a little bit of explanation, because what the fuck? She's a princess now. She didn't have family. I swear to God, I swear to God. That should not be the wave magic wand away all explanations. A little bit, a little something.
For this movie, it is, though, because it is also poking fun at the fairy tale genre.
I think you're giving it too much credit. I think they're just like, and she's a princess now.
Says the guy who was like, this is so impeccably written.
Oh, it is. After you get past the first. Once you get the main character, once Inigo Montoya shows up, once you get the main character and we're not dealing with these little sad sack side characters, they're actually fine. I'm just joking.
You're just being unnecessarily douchey.
A little bit. Fuck Billy Crystal.
Yep, she's betrothed to the Prince Humperdinck, who is... He has to be at least some of the reference for King Farquaad or Lord Farquaad in
100%.
Shrek. Like, not in the stature, but in like in the way that he's dressed, his mannerisms, the kind of character that he is. Like, there has to be at least a little bit.
Yeah.
And so the fun part about Humperdinck is he's played by Chris Sarandon, who is the voice of Jack Skellington. Not the singing voice, but the voice of Jack Skellington in Nightmare Before Christmas.
And I met him. I met him at a convention a couple years ago.
Cool.
Yeah, I went to have my picture taken with Meatloaf. That was like my sole focus of going there. And I got to meet him, and then I got to meet the guy who did the voice for Mr. Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
They were both super nice.
Cool. I'm not going to turn this into a Nightmare Before Christmas thing. So.
No. God, no.
I just think it's funny to see everybody in this movie is basically known from one thing or another.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just...
I will say one thing about the prince, though, is like later on, especially when he's tracking them, dude, he is remarkably competent.
Yeah.
Like, damn. He is calling every single thing that happened as it happens. He smells an odorless poison and knows what it is. That one bothers me a little bit.
Yeah.
It's surprising that he's not just like a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when push comes to shove, he draws his sword and he's ready to throw down. So I'm like, you know what? That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
He's not a total incompetent sleazebag.
Yeah.
Just mostly incompetent.
Just a little bit. He only wants to have his wife abducted so he can start a war.
Yeah, we don't know that yet, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of the abduction, though, I mean, that's pretty much how the film goes, though.
Yeah,
he's gonna marry her. The people love her. It's all great. Everything's great. She loves her horseback riding. Oh my God, she's abducted.
Not everything's great because she does not want to marry Humphrey.
No, she does not.
She's still forlorn in her love for Wesley, who is presumed dead for these last several years.
Womp womp.
So
a lot of womp womps in this.
So she goes riding off into the forest and encounters
the main character of the movie. Oh shit! The main character of the movie, and two other guys.
She encounters Vizzini and...
Not the main character.
Inigo Montoya.
The main character.
And Fezzik.
Best friend of the main character. And it is very funny the way that they're standing. First off, they're just like blocking the road. Like they're standing there like dramatically like,
yeah.
We're waiting for her. They're also standing in order of height. With Vizzini at the bottom, Inigo Montoya, the normal sized person, Andre the Giant being like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you got Wallace Shawn, who's just kind of a short-statured fella.
Yeah, he's
right
not
there.
very tall.
And then on the other side, you got Andre the Giant,
who is just fucking dude. He is so fucking big.
And like you said, Mandy Patinkin's just kind of there chilling.
Yeah. So. You know what? I want to take a minute and talk about Mandy Patinkin. Mandy Patinkin is like probably top 5 most talented people alive. Fuck that guy. He is so talented. I, for years, did not know this was him. Because I know him. So I'm a theater person. I know him from all the stuff he's done with Sondheim. That's the way I recognize him, which is him a little older, and I don't want to sound mean, but like a little more heavy set, because he's very lean in this movie.
Yeah.
So I had just always seen him later on and never fucking realized that was him. I think literally, you want to know when I learned that was him? You told me it was him when we went to go see a movie and they did the pre-trivia question things, and it was something about Mandy Patinkin being Inigo Montoya, and you're like, yeah, that's him. And I was just like, what the fuck do you mean that's Mandy Patinkin? The Sondheim guy?
Yeah.
That's fucking Inigo Montoya? Holy shit, I had no fucking idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's, oh my God, he's so talented. Such a good singer. He's such a good actor. He seems like such a nice person. He's so emotive. He's the main character of this movie. He's fucking great. Love him. Love Manny Patinkin. And Inigo Montoya. I do like that he says Inigo Montoya. The people in the story say Inigo Montoya. The grandfather and son say like Inigo. Like they pronounce it differently. I like that they both do that. But I also have a question about the grandfather is the one reading this. It's a little weird that there's like the disconnect there.
I don't know. I mean,
if I'm reading you a book and I say Inigo, and then the movie version of the book I'm reading is played out and they say Inigo, that's weird. That's not fairy tale. That's not fantasy. That's a bad pronunciation.
Is it though? Because you can make the argument that the action within the story is known to, and the names are known to the characters within the story, but then the person reading the story. The thing I think of is for like the entirety of our generation who read Harry Potter.
I was literally fucking thinking Harry Potter.
Like nobody knew how to say Hermione's
name.
Dude,
that's literally the name I was thinking
At
of.
least nobody in the United States knew how to say Hermione.
Seriously, Hermione, and then I grew up reading a lot of manga. Holy fuck me at 12 years old trying to pronounce these Japanese names.
Yeah.
I'm just making up fucking sound effects at this point.
So, theoretically, if I were narrating a manga or if I were narrating a Harry Potter book and then somehow in an alternate universe the characters were portraying the story aside from me, they would know that her name is Hermione, even if I'm pronouncing it like Hermione or something like that. But
Is that how you pronounced it?
no, I did Hermione one.
That might be worse. The name thing doesn't really bother me. I was just fucking with you.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
I think it's fine.
But anyway, so they kidnap Buttercup.
This is also a really one of those moments where I'm like, man, that's a really good line. So for this one, Vizzini, constantly forget his name.
Yeah.
He has two very good threatening lines almost back to back, because I will say they kidnap her, they put her on a boat, and then just a few minutes later he gets one. So here, he's like, is there any like town nearby? And she's like, there's nothing around. He's like, good, then no one will hear you scream. And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
The Munchkin Man had a pretty damn intimidating line.
We got business going on.
Yeah. And then not too long later, she says something about them being hanged by the neck, and he's like, Princess, the only neck on this ship you should be worried about is your own. And you're just like, damn, dude.
Yeah.
This little dude has got some like viscosity in him.
It's especially funny because the main association I have with Wallace Shawn is as the
Toy
voice
Story.
No.
Oh.
Yes, but also the voice of the principal from a Goofy movie.
Oh, that's fair.
So I'm just science slumber parties.
Oh my god. I always think of Toy Story, and then Young Sheldon. He's a teacher in Young Sheldon, and he just plays a kind of a derpy, smaller, older man.
But he's right.
He's very charming. He's very funny in this.
Yeah, they all are. Like we've. This is gonna be a podcast episode where we're constantly praising everybody who.
To be honest, once we get after this is where I don't think there's any writing issues that bother me. There are just a few at the beginning, Billy Crystal, and then I love the rest of it. Speaking of, like, there are moments where I really like character things that they don't have to progress the story, but it's just filling in characters. Because I always talk about I like things feeling lived in. I always like the idea that there's something there. We get a little bit of it on the ship between Inigo Montoya and, it's so hard to not just say Andre the Giant, between Inigo Montoya and Fezzik, where they start talking back and forth and they keep rhyming with each other, and it's just adorable. Like, you can just tell these guys are genuine friends. Vizzini yells at them a lot, and there's one moment where like he yells something about like stop it, or like he's like getting mad, and Andre the Giant rhymes with him again, and he's like stop it, like he's getting so mad. But these other two guys, they're just friends, man. They're just dudes.
Yeah.
It's just so nice that they just, that's not something they had to explain. They didn't have to be like, hey, you know how we always do that rhyme? No, they just show it, and it's cute, and I don't think it comes back. I don't think they have any rhyming thing after that. It's just a nice little thing.
Nothing major. When they meet up at the right before the Miracle Max stuff.
Oh yeah, when he picks him up.
Yeah, he has a little bit of a rhyme there. That's just kind of Fezzik's thing, is that he rhymes. He's good at rhyming. But yeah, they kidnap Buttercup. They get on the ship, and
they get on the boat. This is one of the moments where I'm like, boy, the budget of this film is on screen for all to see.
Yeah.
These boats are floating. That is something, because we have when the Dread Pirate Roger shows up, who's totally not Wesley. When he shows up on his, I'm like, his is also a very small boat.
Yeah.
And then that's when Inigo's like, do you think anyone could be following us? Inconceivable. And then they have the eel scene, and then he's like, are you sure no one's following us? What makes you ask? Well, there's someone right there.
Yeah. Real quick, one of my favorite things with the eel scene is when they're cutting between the framing device with the grandfather and the grandson, and then coming back.
Mm-hmm.
There's one moment where he's like, don't worry, she doesn't get eaten by the eels at this time.
Yeah, at this time.
And Fred Savage is like trying to pretend that he's not worried about it, even though he's clutching,
clutching his blanket in front of him.
Yeah, I don't care, Grandpa. I don't. I'm worried and whatnot. But the funny thing to me is there's a moment where he's flipping through the pages trying to find where he was again in the story. And while he's trying to find it, they cut back to Buttercup, and she's just kind of waiting in the water, just waiting for him to start reading again.
That's good. I didn't catch that.
I think it's a really funny.
That's really good.
But
she falls in, and they say something about the eels, the shrieking eels. When she jumps in the water, Vizzini's like, he looks sinks, and Inigo's like, jump in and save her. He's like, I can't swim. They look over at Andre. He's like, I only doggy paddle. And he does his hands in front of like a doggy paddle. And again, his hands, like each of his hands has got to weigh like 45 pounds. But it's just so adorable to see this huge monstrous man go, only doggy paddle. And he's got this super deep voice.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, they have the thing about the shrieky Niels. No one will save you. If you come back in, I promise you'll be fine. As she's about to get chomped, fucking Andre's hand. Just the, what comes, like the hand of God hits this eel.
Yeah.
In the head. This poor eel is dead. This thing's in 17 pieces by the, it's like an anime where someone gets hit and they explode. And it's just like that. You know that eel is dead. And then, yeah, he picks her up and gets her back in the ship. They have the moment of, are you sure no one's following us? What makes you ask? He's right there. And then it's like, inconceivable. They keep going.
And then the next morning, like,
oh my God, he's right on top of us. And then he goes like, do you think he's using the same wind we are?
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, whoever wrote that line, genius. That is so funny, and it's kind of dumb, but I love it.
It's too late. We're at the cliffs of insanity.
Dude, these they've got some really good practical effects here. When they're going up the side,
yeah,
it looks very good.
Well, it's filmed at the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland, so it helps to add a little bit of the realism. The climbing probably didn't happen at the cliffs.
No,
that's probably just a set that they built.
Looks good though.
Yeah, but it's very impressive. So, yeah, they've already set up this.
Oh my God, the harness that he wears is so fucking funny.
They've already set up this huge rope that has this harness on it. It goes over Andre the Giant, Fezzik.
Yeah,
and
it has like belt harnesses for the other three people.
So they all hook up. Wallace Shawn as Vizzini is just right on his stomach. And
yeah,
he's
right in his face. And
time.
Here in a minute, he is just bitching at him nonstop. Dude, I gotta say, man, big balls on Vizzini to look up at Andre the Giant and like bitch him out.
Yeah.
Okay, bud.
But that's
also this rope they're climbing right now. Put your hands in front of you and make as big of a circle as you possibly can. That is how thick this rope is.
It's comically thick.
It is ridiculous. It's like literally 4 ropes twined into one.
But it makes sense because it needs to be able to hold the weight of 4 people, including
Andre the Giant.
Fezzik,
so 14 people.
Yeah. In any case, they're like, no, Fezzik is the only one who can climb this rope, that has the strength to climb this rope. And then the next ship that has been trailing them the whole time comes.
It's small enough.
The boat that comes that's been trailing them the whole time. You see the Dread Pirate Roberts jump off.
I will say we don't really know that yet. We just see a guy dressed all in black with a sword and a mask.
Yeah, he looks like a classic sort of swashbuckling pirate from an old 30s movie.
Yeah.
So he starts climbing the rope and he's
going
fast.
He is booking.
He's booking it, and this is where you once again get inconceivable.
Yep. And like Vizzini is bitching out Fezzik. I thought you were I have to get a new giant. You're supposed to be he's catching on us. Andre the Giant's like, well, he's only carrying himself. I'm carrying 3 other people, which I think is a remarkably valid point.
It's a fair point.
I mean, this dude is also like pulling. It's such a cool shot, man.
Yeah.
It just looks so good.
Yeah, the entire way that they shoot this scene is really fun because it's just a little chase of you get a far off wide shot of them, then it swings down to show. You good? You get the far off wide shot of them, and then it swings down to show the pursuer, and then it comes back up to them. They finally get up to the top of the cliffs. Vizzini pulls out this little stiletto.
Yeah.
And he starts sawing at this huge
sawing away like a madman.
So they eventually get it unclipped and they drop it off. And they're like, nobody can survive that.
Yep.
There's no way they can climb the cliffs. Look over the cliff. He's hanging on to the cliffs now. Inconceivable.
And then this is where Inigo looks at him and goes, you keep using that word, but I do not think it means what you think it means.
Yeah.
And so then, Vizzini is like, okay, you stay here and you kill him and we'll keep going. And he's like, okay, sorry, he is Inigo. Yeah. And he goes like, okay, I'll duel him left-handed. And Vizzini's like, whatever. He just does not care.
Whatever, I don't care. We'll do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and I think he says something about meeting us. I will say it is sort of during this time period also that we learn Vizzini's plan is to, he's taken piece of garment that's got an area from another country, like a almost a logo, a sigil from another country, put it back on Buttercup's horse and send it back. So they're going to kill her, dump her at the border, and then make it look like the neighboring country did it. All out war ensues, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So that is the ultimate plan.
Yeah. So all the meantime, they leave. Fezzik, Vizzini, and Buttercup all leave. Inigo's just kind of chilling at the top of the thing, warming up.
Dude, it is so funny. He is like stretching. He goes over to the side and he's like, hello there. Wesley gives some of the best facial expressions in this movie. Because I swear to God, he just like looks up kind of slowly like, are you fucking kidding me right now? He is holding on to the side of this cliff for everything he's worth. And it's just like, hello there. And the look on his face is great. And he's like, Inigo says, I do not think you would accept help from me since I'm just going to kill you when you get up here. And Wesley's like, well, that does put a hamper on our relationship. Yeah. Another one of those moments where you're like, damn, that's a good line.
I love the dialogue throughout this entire scene because they're both so cordial with each other, so genial, and so honorable with one another.
So immediately respectful of each other as well.
And it really endears you to both characters, even though at this point you just think, okay, this is some pursuer who's trying to get to Buttercup. You don't know who it is yet.
You have a pretty good idea.
You have a pretty good idea because
very clearly him in a mask. I mean, so clearly him in a mask. Like later on when Buttercup sees him, is like talking to him, I'm like, what the fuck?
But to be fair, she's only ever heard him say 3 words.
Not true. No, motherfucker. When they say they fall in love and they have their kiss moment, then he does say something about like, I will return. Yeah. So she has heard more sentences.
She's heard 6 words.
Okay, that's fair. Not much of a conversationalist.
He offers to throw a piece of rope down to hasten getting him up. Get him up.
He's basically like, I want to fight you. Can you hurry up? And then Wesley's like, well, you could like throw down a rope or a tree branch or something. He's like, oh, well, I do happen to have a rope here.
Yeah.
And then that's when they kind of have I'm sure you wouldn't accept help from me. And then he's like, is there anything I could say to convince you? And he's like, no. He's like, I think he says something like, I promise I won't kill you until you get up here.
I'll give you my word as a Spaniard.
He's
like, I've known too many Spaniards.
Yeah, known too many Spaniards. And then there's a very big shift in tone where he's like, I, Inigo Montoya, promise on the soul of my father. I think he even says his father's name. Montoya. That you will reach the top alive. And Wesley pauses for just a second and is like, throw me the rope. And right there, you're starting to be like, oh man, this is good. Yeah. This is just good.
Yeah.
And then he climbs the rope. There is something very interesting. I have never noticed this before because I've seen this movie more than once. Yeah. I've never noticed it before that when Wesley is coming up the side and when he gets up the top, there's a bit of a thing in a few minutes. He's like, oh my God, he's right-handed. He is carrying his sword on his right side, which you would typically draw left-handed. Yeah. So he is active because Inigo is not doing that. Inigo draws and then just changes hands. But Wesley is in fact walking around with his sword on his right side, which you would draw with your left hand across your body.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know, never noticed that before.
I can't say I noticed that. That's a good detail.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets to the top and he's immediately like, okay. And Inigo's like, no, like take your time. You just got up here. Let's like talk for a minute. Yeah. When you're ready, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
This is where we do get a little bit of backstory with Inigo. He does say like, I've got a strange question for you. Do you happen to have 6 fingers on your right hand? And Wesley's like, is this how you start all your conversations?
Yeah. So then my father was murdered by a 6-fingered man.
Yeah, he does specify my father was murdered by a 6-fingered man. He tells him about how his father was a sword maker. He pulls out the sword. And this is another like great moment of respect. They're about to fight. He thinks to the death. He hands Wesley his sword.
Yeah.
I will also say the sword, it is... I'm not 100% sure what you would call this type of sword. I've always called it a rapier. Yeah. But I think maybe like the thickness of the blade might technically make it closer to another type of sword.
Yeah.
But it is like a fencing sword. These are very much fencing swords in this movie, which are long, thin blades. But his has a very ornate handle. It's very pretty. It's clear a lot of effort went into this. And he gives it to Wesley and tells him the story about how a 6-fingered man commissioned his father to make the sword. His father made it. Then the man came back and offered him 1/10 of the price for it. Mm-hmm. His father said no. He killed his father. Inigo was like, I challenged him to a duel. I failed, and he gave me these. And he's got like these 2 scars on his cheeks. And you're like, oh man, he lost a fight. That sucks. And then Wesley's like, how old were you? And he's like, 11. You're like, what the fuck? No wonder you fucking lost. You were a kid.
Yeah, so then that started Inigo on a path of vengeance and seeking the six-fingered man.
20 years now.
20 years. He learned all these different fencing techniques to try to prepare himself for this.
And he even says, like, working for Vizzini just pays the bills.
Yeah. There's not a lot of money in revenge.
Yep, that's a good fucking line too.
So after this conversation, they both agree, now is the time to start fighting.
Well, this is also where he says you get the first time you get the line, like the fucking line from this movie. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Yeah.
Like he says, that's what I'm gonna say to him. And then they do have like well, you've been more than kind enough and cordial enough, and they draw their swords and they both start fighting. Fucking holy fuck, this sword fight. This is one of the best fucking sword fights.
And what I love about it is, aside from the 2 flips that the characters do, it's all Mandy Patinkin and Cary Elwes.
Dude, it is so fucking good. I will say I'm a bit of a sucker for like top 10 lists.
Yeah.
I like watching people where they watch scenes and be like, okay, I'm gonna watch these guys who claim they're U.S. Marines. I am a Marine. I'm gonna see how realistic this is.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a dude who was like a professional sword fighter and trainer watching this fight and being like, how the fuck are they doing this?
Yeah.
And one thing that's cool, I'm not very knowledgeable about fencing. I know a lot more about like long sword fighting, more stuff like that.
Yeah.
It is crazy to me how much they do, and the only thing moving is like one arm, and then their feet are just back and forth.
Yeah.
Like and their swords are just clang, clang, clang. I mean, going fucking crazy. It is so fast.
It's true swashbuckling.
Yeah.
Like fencing.
100%.
I believe the fight choreography was done by some of the people who also worked on the original Star Wars trilogy.
You know what?
So
that tracks.
It is phenomenal. They start fighting. They're both using their left hand because Inigo's using his left hand because it's his weak hand.
Yep, he says, I'm going to fight with my left hand to actually give him a chance. You don't know anything otherwise about Wesley up to this point.
Yeah, because as you said, Wesley is pulling his sword from the scabbard on his right hip, which would be for his left hand. So you're thinking, okay, he must be left-handed.
Yeah.
So they're fighting for a while, and they're, having a little verbal sparring while they go too.
I kind of looked up some of the stuff that they talked about, and I really do think they're just kind of making stuff up.
Yeah.
They're naming like, it's kind of like when you hear people really talk about chess and they're like, oh, the such and such offensive. Oh, I'm going to use the such and such defense. It's stuff like that, banter back and forth.
Yeah.
There is also a spot, I'm not 100% sure if it's before the fight or if it's during the fight, where Inigo Montoya is like, you seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you. And then Wesley's like, you seem a decent fellow. I hate to die.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those, fuck, that's such a good line.
Line after line after line is banger after banger after banger.
It's so good. But yeah, they're fighting. I mean, boom, 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 and then finally they're like, "Wow, you're really good." And I think Inigo's like, "Oh, you're better than me." And Wesley's like, "Why are you smiling?" He goes, "I know something you don't know. I'm actually right-handed." And the fucking change to his right hand is so fucking good because it is mid-fight. It is clang, 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 switch. I mean, he just keeps on going.
Yeah.
It is it is seamless. It is so fucking good. And then they go for another minute, and it seems like Wesley's getting overpowered, and Wesley's like, you should also know I'm right-handed as well. So then he pushes him off, and then he tosses it over to his right hand, and swish. And then, they do a little bit more fighting. They do the freaking gymnast
the
flip
little
off the thing.
Stuff. And finally, Wesley disarms Inigo, and Inigo drops to his knees.
Yeah, he drops to his knees, says, kill me quickly.
And Wesley is like,
I would sooner destroy a stained glass window than kill a true artist like yourself.
Yeah.
Huh? Boom.
Just knocks him out, runs off after Vizzini and all them. So
yeah. And then, Fezzik, Vizzini, they look back and see that they have not made it very far. There's a lot of moments in this movie where someone's chasing someone and the person they are chasing gets like 10 feet. Yeah. Later on, when Inigo's chasing the six-fingered man and he's trying to get through the door, he gets to the door, he's immediately on him. I'm like, bro, the six-fingered man had like minutes to run. He got down the steps. Are there just ton of steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he keeps going, and then Vizzini looks at Fezzik and is like, "Here, you stay here and you take him out, you kill him." And he's like, "Do it your way." And Fezzik's like, "What's my way?" And he's like, "Grab one of those rocks, stand behind the boulder, and when he rounds the corner, you hit him in the head with it." And then Vizzini takes off.
My way doesn't seem very sporty.
Yes, Fezzik's like, "My way doesn't seem very sportsmanlike." And he's, again, that super deep voice. And then there's a freaking Vizzini takes off with Buttercup. Fezzik's here. Wesley comes up and like starts to stop. Like he's like, "Huh, there might be something here."
Yeah, so Fezzik grabs a rock and he hides behind a big boulder because they're in a little field where there's a bunch of like random boulders all over the place. And the pursuer, I guess we'll call him Wesley.
I've been calling him Wesley for a while. So spoiler alert, it's Wesley.
It's Wesley. AKA,
also, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched this movie, maybe get your life together.
AKA the Dread Pirate Roberts. So he comes running up into this boulder situation in pursuit, and
he draws his sword, and then boom, a rock explodes next to him. Yeah. He draws a sword and he turns, and Fezzik's there holding another boulder. Yeah. He's holding it like it's a baseball, but it's the size of a person.
Yeah.
And he says, "I didn't have to miss. I could have hit you, but I wanted to give you a chance."
Yeah. Which, once again, we have this honor amongst these two characters, Inigo and Fezzik, and now Wesley as well. So then they have their little back and forth.
They're just kind of talking a little bit about, he's like, I'm the strong one. I would like to fight as, I think he says, like, challenge each other as men, as God intended, no weapons. Yeah. So Wesley's like, "So I put down my sword and you put down the rock?"
Yes.
And he's like, "Yes." And he's like, "That doesn't seem very fair. I mean, I feel like you're going to be able to kill me." And he holds up the rock. He's like, "I could kill you now." And Wesley's just like, "Fair point."
Fair point. So put everything away.
Yeah, so he puts the sword away. They go they kind of go hand to hand. Wesley like and like grabs it and just nothing. It's like when you see a parent playing with their child and the child's like grabbing their leg, and then Wesley's like, "You're just playing with me, aren't you?"
Yeah.
And freaking Fezzik's like, "Oh, I want you to feel like you're doing well. I hate for people to die while they feel embarrassed." What a fucking great line for this character.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, it's so fucking good. There is a line in this that I have a question about, though.
Okay.
So they're going back and forth, and Andre the Giant kind of punches at him a few times, and he dodges, and he rolls, and he's like, "Oh, you're quick." So it's very clear that one's faster, one's stronger.
Yeah.
Well, then Wesley goes and grabs him from behind and puts him in a bit of a chokehold, and this kind of goes on for a hot minute because he's choking him out slowly. Fezzik sometimes like finds a boulder behind him and like smashes him up against it. They're, of course, because it's this movie, they're still talking during this.
Yeah.
He says, "I'm not used to battling one man. I'm used to battling groups of like 10 or more." And Wesley's like, "Oh, why is that?" He says, "I'm used to battling gangs for local charities." I have so many questions about that line that never get answered.
He says charity?
He says charities. He says battling gangs for local charities.
Well, we know that he and Inigo are hired hands for Vizzini.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that implies that he's like been hired by communities in the past to like prevent people from ransacking charities. So that would be my best guess.
I don't know. It's just a funny line.
It's just a fun line.
Yeah, and Wesley's just like choking him out. He finally goes down.
Yeah.
Poor Cary Elwes has to roll Andre the Giant over, and he listens to his chest to make sure he's still alive. He's like, "Oh, okay." And then he gets up and he's like, "Rest well and dream of large women." Okay. That's one of my favorite lines in this movie.
Just another great line. Unbelievable.
Oh, man. So yeah, he has now dealt with the Spaniard, dealt with the giant.
And now he's raced off. At this point, we cut back to where Inigo and Wesley had their sword fight. And you have the prince. And so here he's on the cliff, and he's sort of stepping in the same footsteps that Wesley and Inigo would have done during their fight, and talking about how there was a sword fight. So you're seeing that tracking that Buttercup talked.
Yeah, and everything he says is true. He's talking about like they were fighting. It was a great fight. One was a bit better than the other. One loses, one wins. He correctly deduces they both lived, and that's where you're like, damn, dude's pretty good.
Yeah. So then he deduces that the person they're tracking must have gone off that way with Buttercup. So they follow off the next way, and this is where we get the scene where Wesley comes face to face with Vizzini.
Vizzini has set up a picnic. I mean, like table included, cheese, wine, bread, cups, whole 9 yards. Yeah, he does have the knife up to her neck. He does get another good line about if you come any closer, I'll kill her. And then Wesley still pushes forward, and he says something about, oh, you should know, you're killing her. Yeah. As he pushes a knife into her neck, and you're like, oh, fuck, this just got some kind of scary lines. He's got some goofy as fuck lines. But so anyway, they eventually come to an accord that they're going to have a good old-fashioned
battle of wits, because Inigo was the swordsman, Fezzik was the muscle, Vizzini is the brains, quote unquote.
I'm so confused about this character. I'm so confused if he's good at his job or not. I don't, because Inigo is such a talented swordsman. Yeah. Andre the Giant is so good at being a giant. But I mean, they follow this dude. And later on, they're like, Inigo's like, I can't do it without Fezzik's mind. Yeah. So I'm like, I can't tell if he's good at his job or not.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, their plan would have succeeded had Wesley not shown up.
I mean, I guess technically he is intelligent. It's just that Wesley outwits him, so we know Wesley. But it's like
when he's doing his big, basically monologue here in a few minutes, the whole time you're like, I don't. Are you smart or not? Like, I cannot fucking tell what's going on.
So basically, they sit at this and have a little tete-a-tete, and
there is one thing here that really bothers me. I don't know why. There are two things in movies I always fucking catch. I don't know why. I always notice when someone's left-handed. When an actor is left-handed, I don't know why that's something I always fucking pick up on. And then another thing that always gets me are the amount of liquid that should be in things people are carrying. So when you see someone, fucking the one I always fucking think of is in the third High School Musical movie. Ryan, the blonde-haired character, he takes a coffee cup, a pot of coffee, pours approximately 1 drop worth of coffee in the coffee cup, and then pretends to sip it from the top. You dumb fuck. We know that's empty. Or when you see people walking, it's almost always coffee cups. When they're walking with coffee cups, and they're like swooshing them around, you're like, there's supposed to be liquid in that. They don't act like there's something in it. In this one, he has the 2 wine glasses. He pours like 3 drops in the first one, and then he goes to pour in the second one, and then the camera angle changes, and the first cup is full. Bitch, you poured 3 drops in it. I just saw you do it.
That's just one of those filmmaking shortcuts.
I know.
I don't need to drop it. I understand you notice it, so it's just kind of this thing. One of those things. Like, if you next time, dear viewer, you're watching something that has like a coffee cup or something like that, watch how the actor is carrying the coffee cup, because you can almost always tell that it's empty.
Yeah, it is almost always coffee cups. And I mean like the to-go coffee cups that have the lid on them with the little sippy hole. It's almost always those that people are walking around with them. I'm like, you can clearly tell there's nothing in that cup.
Yeah. But in any case, they'd agree to have this battle of wits, and ultimately, like you said, Vizzini
they do say to the death as well.
To the death. And they pour wine in these goblets, and then Vizzini allows Wesley to choose which goblet he pours poison into.
Yeah, and this poison, Wesley pulls it out, and it's in a little tube, and it's sealed, and it looks like a white powder. He has Vizzini smell it, and he's like, I smell nothing. That's gonna come back to play later. Because he's like, of course you don't. It's like iocane. Iocane. He says it's a poison. But yeah, Wesley pulls both cups behind him, comes back, puts them there. And yeah, Vizzini just goes on. I mean, it is like a rant.
Yeah, but it's such a great rant.
It is good. It is so fucking funny, and it's so in character for him.
Yeah.
But he literally gives himself like 4 different things about, I know that I'm smart, and I know that you know that I'm smart, and I know that you know that I know that you know that I'm smart, and because of that, I can't drink the cup in front of me, but because you knew that, I can't drink the cup in front of you. And Wesley's like, huh, seems like we're in a predicament. No, we're not, because I also know. I mean, it's just like, and every single option he gives, he says, I can't drink the cup in front of me, but because of this, I can't drink the cup in front of you. So it's like every fucking, you have 2 options. And then finally he builds to like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. What's that over there?
What is that?
Yeah, Wesley goes to turn and he swaps the cups. And then Wesley turns back around and he's like, oh, sorry, I thought I saw something. Well, cheers. I'll drink from my cup and you drink from yours.
You've made your decision.
And then it's, oh my God. One of my favorite fucking lines, though, is he's like giggling and Wesley's like, what are you laughing about? And he's like, I'll tell you in a minute. It's one of the funniest fucking lines.
Yeah, so they both, he swaps the goblets. He takes the one in front of him, and Wesley takes the one in front of him, and they drink. And they're just eyeing each other the whole time. And then they wait, nothing happens.
Yeah, well, Vizzini immediately starts laughing like, ha, you fool, blah, 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 blah. It's fool. Inconceivable. I think.
Yeah.
And he's like, ha, 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 ha. Falls over.
Falls over. So you naturally think, okay, so Vizzini played himself and got the one with the poison, because there's nothing wrong with Wesley.
Yeah.
So Wesley goes to untie Buttercup, and Buttercup observes, oh, so he's the one who got the poison.
Mm-hmm.
They were both poisoned.
Yeah, she's like, how did you know he would get the poison? He's like, I put the poison in both. I've spent the last few years building up a tolerance to this poison.
Sure. Why not?
Personally, I have a fan theory that is my own. I'm sure someone online has said this. I don't think he killed Vizzini. I think he knocked him out.
Hmm.
The reason I say that, it's a little weird because when they get there later, he is still killed over, and then much later in the movie, Fezzik says he killed Vizzini. But I think it's strange that if that is the case, that's the only character in this movie that Wesley kills.
Mm.
He spares the first 2, which, to be fair, they are less evil than Vizzini.
I was going to say, Vizzini doesn't have the honor about him.
He doesn't, but we up to this point do not know of Wesley ever killing a single person. He's never said anything about killing someone. We never see him kill anyone. He fights. Very good at fighting.
Well, he claims that he kills a good many people. Yeah. As the Dread Pirate Roberts.
He's bullshitting, though. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean,
I just thought about it this time, that he's like, he has this poison that he claims is a poison, but it would be really easy to have it just be like, it knocks them out instead of kills them.
It would be very easy. And
he probably kills them.
You do never see the body, technically.
Yeah, I mean,
like you see.
Yeah,
you
when
see
Prince Humperdinck gets there, it's still on the ground, but they get there not long after. So I was like, I don't know. It just hit me this time. I'm like, I wonder if he actually killed him.
I think he kills him because he's not honorable like the others are. But any logical fan theory is valid to an extent.
No,
I said logical fan.
Mace Windu should have been Snoke.
Oh God,
that was such a God.
Okay, we're not rehashing this.
I have never held to a fan theory more powerfully, and what I had was better than what they did.
We are not hashing this out.
No, we're not. But then, so she goes off with the Dread Pirate Roberts. She's mad because, she thinks that he killed Wesley. While they more or less leave, this is when Humperdinck does get up to...
where Andre the Giant's fight was.
Yeah.
And he, again, correctly deduces everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, determines, okay, nobody died in this situation, but he did fight the giant. And all this stuff. And then we cut back more to Wesley and Buttercup, and this is where we get the conversation about how he's the Dread Pirate Roberts and Buttercup holds him responsible for killing Wesley. And Wesley goes along with it.
Yeah, but he's also mad at her.
Yeah, he's mad at her.
Because he's like, you couldn't wait. You said you were going to wait for me, and now I come back and you're engaged to someone else.
Tell me, did you wait a week to.
Yeah, I think he said something like, "Did you at least wait a week before you got engaged, or did you do it the same day?"
Yeah. So this entire conversation is them going back and forth about Wesley's trying to figure out if she still actually loves him or if she's truly moved on, or if she ever loved him at all. And Buttercup's just angry because, as far as she knows, this is the Dread Pirate Roberts, and the Dread Pirate Roberts is the person who killed Wesley and the rest of Wesley's crew.
Yeah.
So it comes to a head.
He does also say that. I remember that boy. I remember that. He didn't cry. He didn't. He just said, "Please, please, I have to get back to my love."
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, that's kind of a fucked up thing to say to someone when.
Well, it's kind of it can be read as kind of a him backwardsly confessing that he still loves her.
Yeah.
Even as a part of the charade.
I honestly think it's just him telling the truth because you find out that is exactly what happened.
It is partially him just telling the truth of the situation, but he's twisting it towards his purpose of figuring out where she stands with everything. So finally, she pushes him off of a hill.
I don't remember what she says when she pushes him, though. So something about, like, you can just go die too or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, she pushes him down this hill, and as he's rolling, he's like, "As you wish." With, like, the worst sound editing in the history of film. It is so bad. And then she's like, "Oh my God, Wesley, my love." And then Princess Buttercup fucking yeets herself off this fucking hill. Why didn't she try to run? She doesn't try to slide. She basically just swan dives off this fucking hill.
Because it's not as funny.
That's fair. But then they're falling, and it's like, ooh, ee, ah, ooh. And it's terrible sound editing, and it goes on for a hot minute. But it's like, it's funny. It's very funny the way that they do it.
Yeah, it's very clearly just ADR and everything else, because it's not either. That's not Carrie Elwes, and that's not Robin Wright going down the hill.
No.
It's also probably not as steep of a hill as what they...
God, no, they're falling for a while. They fell off a mountain.
But they also very clearly, like, you can tell that they changed the camera angle so that it looks steeper than it actually was. But it's fun. They land at the bottom. As they go down the hill, like, Wesley's mask unwraps and unravels, and so they both land at the bottom of the hill, and they're immediately like, "Oh, we're so happy we're in love again."
They're not even the main characters of this movie.
Okay.
It is also during this time that we cut back to the prince has gotten up to the body of Vizzini.
Yeah.
And he picks up the fucking poison tube, smells it, and he immediately knows what poison it is. And I'm just like, okay, hold up. It has no smell. What the fuck? How do you know that?
I guess maybe he deduced that it was poison, and thus...
I saw online someone's like, well, there are only so many poisons in the world. I'm like, do you know all the poisons in the world? Because I fucking don't. Like, it's fine. It's not a big
it's not
deal,
a huge
but
deal. It's one of those things. It's just, once again, him being this excellent tracker. Somehow he has this sense about it, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now, basically, Wesley and Buttercup are all lovey-dovey and together again. Wesley's giving him the backstory of what exactly happened.
Well, this is also as they're going into the forest.
The fire swamp.
Yeah, forest of the fire swamp. And she's like, "Oh my God, we'll never survive." And he's like, "Nonsense. You're only saying that because no one ever has." Another, like, fuck, that's such a good line, man.
I can't fault the logic either. Eventually, somebody has to be the first.
That is good.
So they go into the fire swamp, and at this point, I think Humperdinck is also determined that they're heading towards the fire swamp.
Yeah.
From when he was in Vizzini's area. So this is where
his grave.
his grave, yeah, basically. This is where Wesley and Buttercup kind of get the down low about what's been going on with Wesley for the last 5 years, how he became the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Oh my God. Do you remember the names of the people who were before?
I believe one of them was Ryan.
Ryan. He's like, yeah, I got promoted from the previous Dread Pirates Roberts. His name was Ryan, and the man before him was Cumberbund. It's like weird, like Ryan.
Yeah.
Fucking most normal fucking name.
Well,
it's funny. It is very funny.
It's very funny. It's a very good little story that he's telling, and you get that, like you said, the sense of he said to Ryan, "Hey, please don't kill me. I need to."
He said that what I told you about the please was the truth.
Yeah. So
the nice thing about like Ryan's like you can I think be my steward for a day.
Yeah.
And he's like,
I'll most likely kill you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll most likely kill you tomorrow. And he told him this every day for years.
Yeah. And finally, Ryan was like, hey, I'm going to settle down. We're going to go to port, get rid of all the crew, bring in a whole new crew. You're going to be the Dread Pirate Roberts. I'm going to serve under you for a little while to help get you settled.
Yeah.
And then I'm retired. I'm done.
Man, how the fuck does a pirate crew from this era have a fucking better management transfer structure than modern corporate America? What the fuck? How the fuck does that happen?
I guess when you've had this long line of Dread Pirate Robertses, because it's established that this isn't a person, it's a title. So.
Yeah, because she does say, like, how is it that you're the Pirate Roberts when you've only been gone 5 years, and they say he's been on the sea for 20? So, yeah, they do explain how that happened, why it happened. She does also get her dress set on fire at one point. You can literally see the flame jelly on the dress, which is fine. But he puts it out, and then it becomes very funny because he says something in a few minutes about the fire's not that bad. You can always hear it before it goes off. Yeah. There are times where they're walking, he'll just nonchalantly grab her and move her to the side. And as she does, fire fucking erupts from under her.
And they just keep on going.
Yeah, and he just keeps going. There's also a funny thing where he keeps cutting like vines and stuff, and none of it cuts where he hits it. No. All of it it's like cutting and breaking from other areas. There's also a really funny one when he cuts the thing to jump into like the sand thing. Yeah. He cuts it straight and then it splits at an angle. And you see it's like cut. It's just funny. It's not one of those things that you would notice unless you're looking for it.
Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. I also find it very funny that no matter how thick the vines are, that his sword is able to, his little thin...
Yeah, his little thin rapier just absolutely, like, dude. Okay.
So, eventually Buttercup ends up stepping into a quicksand hole. And
it is a bottomless fucking pit. She's gone. Instantly gone.
Which, I guess, this is sort of the start of, like, the 90s obsession with quicksand.
Fucking quicksand?
Like, everything in the 90s was quicksand. You grow up in the 90s and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to fall into quicksand.
Yeah, dude, somewhere. I was terrified of quicksand as a kid.
I specifically remembered, did you ever watch there's a Disney live action version of the Jungle Book with like an adult Mowgli? And there's the scene.
That's Liu Kang. Of course I watched it. Sorry, go ahead.
There's the scene where one of the bad guys goes into the quicksand, and it is horrifying.
Yep.
But this one, not so much. Wesley, just like you said, cuts the vine, grabs it, swan dives right into the thing, and then comes right back out again.
As they are down there, though, you do see a fucking huge-ass rat creature walk across. You're like, huh, I wonder if that's going to come back into play.
Literally 2 minutes later.
Yeah.
We're about out of the fire pit now. It's okay. No big deal. What about the ROUSs? And then you're like, what are the ROUSs?
He immediately goes, oh, the rodents of unusual size? And then he's like, well, we shouldn't have to. I think he says, like, we know how to deal with the flame thing because I hear it. Yeah. We know what the sand looks like because you just found it. What about the rodents of unusual size? Frankly, I don't think they exist. As he says that, fucking yet again, just a yeet situation. This bitch comes out of nowhere, just like on him. You can tell this is like a fucking person in a suit. This thing is huge.
Yeah. This feels like a person in a suit, Jim Henson Creature Shop kind of thing. It might actually be the Jim Henson Creature Shop. I don't remember in the credits if it was or not. But he and the Wesley fights this rodent
rat creature,
and like the rat gets a few good licks in.
Dude, seriously, chomps his arm, chomps his shoulder, and then Wesley is like holding him, and he hears the flame spot beside of him. He rolls over a few times, holds him up to it. It flares. I have an issue with what he does next because the rodent has been torched. This thing is like on the ground, but he knows it's going to attack again, so he has to kill it. He goes and grabs his sword. Did you see where he stabbed this thing? Brendan, he stabs it in the dick. The second stab is straight up in like the groin area of this rat. He straight up just stabs this poor rat in the dick.
Well, maybe that's the most humane way to stab it.
I highly fucking doubt that.
I don't know. We don't know what the rodents of unusual size anatomy is.
He didn't believe they existed. You think he did? I think he wanted revenge.
No.
He's like, you bite my arm, I stab you
No,
in the
but
dick.
the thing is, he saw the rodent of unusual size right before she asked him about the rodent of unusual size. He knows they exist.
He stabbed in the dick. I have it. I have moral issues with this.
In any case, they escape the fire swamp.
Yep.
Because aren't they, the reason that they are talking about all that is because he brings up the idea of living in the fire swamp, right?
Yeah.
So
And
that
he's-
nobody can find them.
Yeah, and he's like, we'd be safe here. We know
Yeah.
how to survive everything. And,
So-
then he stabs a rat in the dick.
Yeah. So they come out, and immediately Humperdinck and company
company.
are on them. This entire time, Humperdinck has been accompanied by his right-hand man. That's a bit ironic.
Right? I was thinking as soon as you said it.
His right-hand man, Baron Tyrone,
Count Tyrone Rugen.
Count Tyrone Rugen.
You know what's
Great.
weird is in this movie, you never get the name Tyrone Rugen.
Yeah.
He calls him Tyrone. Spoiler alert, this is the six-fingered man. Inigo, the main character of the movie, he calls him Rugen.
Yeah.
So you kind of put together the names that you get. But yeah, he is Count, very much his right-hand man. Seems remarkably loyal. You know,
Yeah.
there's never any kind of like splinter between them. And
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy that.
I respect it.
Yeah.
The prince slowly has his archers surround Wesley as he and Wesley are talking about how...
Oh my God. He's like, surrender. And Wesley's like, surrender? You mean you wish to surrender to me? I accept. It's very good.
Just great line after great line.
And the
man.
deliveries are all so spot on.
Yeah. Wesley and the prince are having this back and forth about how the prince wants Buttercup back, but Wesley's not going to. He says at one point, you can come visit us in the fire swamp sometime, see if you can survive.
Yeah.
Eventually, the prince is ready to order Wesley's death, and
Yeah.
Wesley is like,
He's
try
like,
to kill me.
yeah, he's like, get fucked, no surrender to the death.
Yeah.
But Buttercup sees the archers with
archer,
crossbows aimed at him from not far enough away to miss.
Yeah, so she cuts a deal with the prince that if she goes with the prince, Wesley will be spared and allowed to go back to his ship and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Or his boat, as you would say.
No, that would probably be ship.
Yeah.
That was not his pirate ship. Ain't no
No, it
way he
was
had a
not.
crew on that thing.
Yeah, it was not. But immediately after he agrees, he's like, on my honor.
Yeah, he's like,
and
absolutely.
May I never hunt again.
Yeah. And then he turns to his right-hand man and is like, put him in the pit of despair. I will say, though, up to this point, you actually don't have any real reason to believe that he's a bad person.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Like,
to
she doesn't want to
indicate that
marry
he's-
him, but,
Yeah.
I mean, she's still in love with Homeboy, so
Yeah.
that makes sense.
This is the first indication that maybe not everything's on the up and up with Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah.
So
Well, he takes the princess, he leaves. Wesley goes up to the six-fingered man and sees the
Six Fingers.
Yeah, and then he looks at Wesley and goes, let us get you back to your ship. Wesley looks at him and says, we are both men of action. Liars do not become us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I think the six-fingered man says something about, like, I don't remember what, like, good.
He
acknowledges it.
acknowledges it, and he's like,
True, maybe,
Yeah.
he says.
yeah. So then they knock out Wesley. Wesley ends up in the pit of despair. Wesley does make a comment about the Six Fingers and how he met somebody who was looking for him.
Yeah.
So then, cut to the pit of despair.
Well, just before we get to the pit of despair, though, there's actually two things before the pit of despair.
Oh, is there?
Two small things. Three, really, because this is where they have the dream about Buttercup being...
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this is Buttercup's fever dream.
Yeah. I literally wrote, Buttercup has the bluest freaking eyes. Because when that camera zooms in on, like, right on her face, you're like,
Yeah.
holy crap. But yeah, she, the grandpa's reading the book, and he's like, and Buttercup got married to Prince... And the kid's like, whoa,
Yeah.
Grandpa. You read it wrong. There's no way they got married. And the grandpa's like, do you want me to continue reading? You're getting too riled up. Maybe we should stop. And the kid's
Yeah.
like, no, I'll behave.
Yeah, the grandson's completely invested now.
Dude, and the funniest line from the grandpa is here in a minute because he reads the Princess Buttercup has basically a fever dream that she did get married. So she has her fever dream about getting married to him, and then she like wakes up and And then the grandpa's like, actually, the wedding is in 10 days. And you hear the son's voice, or the grandson's voice be like, see, Grandpa, I told you she wouldn't get married to Humperdinck. He goes, yes, you're very smart. Now shut up. And it's like, it's my favorite. You can tell the grandpa's just like, fuck off, kid. Just let me read this book.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And then, yeah, we have the dream part. You're very smart. Shut up. And then we do have a moment where where Prince Humperdinck and then the Count are in the woods, and they're going to go down to the Pit of Despair. And Count is like, would you like to come into the Pit of Despair with me? Oh my God. This is probably my favorite line for Humperdinck. He's like, Tyrone, you know how much I love watching you work, but I've got my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wedding to arrange, my wife to murder, and Gilder to frame for it. I'm swamped. And it's just like the funniest fucking line from him.
Yeah.
He's like, look, I want to be there when you torture, but I gotta kill this bitch in 10 days. Like, I got stuff to do.
Yeah, because at some point throughout this, we found out the actual plan, like we mentioned, was to have them...
And it was his plan that he enacted.
It was his plan.
Vizzini
He hired Vizzini, and Vizzini kidnapped with the intent to murder and frame the... Or Count goes down into the Pit of Despair, and we find out he has some sort of life-sucking machine.
Bro, it's one of those things. This is a big, like, fantasy. Got it. The overall design of the machine is kind of cool. I like that when he lifts it, you see the water come in. But then the water comes in and it hits one of the spinning wheels that, like a water opera. That is not enough water to move. That wheel is the size of a pickup truck. And the amount of water looks like someone's, like, dumping a 5-gallon bucket on the other side.
Bradley, this is literally a machine that somehow sucks the years of life away from you.
I have an issue with the water supply. That's all I'm saying. No, it is cool. It's one of those things that, you know, they don't have to explain it. It doesn't have to be super intricate. Big machine. He turns it on. He screams. Loud noise. Cool. Got it.
Yeah.
I will say that Carrie Ellis has some great pain acting going on. For me, I always think of when they, like, arch their back so much that their back comes off the ground.
Yeah.
So it's like they're touching it, maybe their butt and their head, and they're like, that to me, that's the image of pain.
Yeah.
And yeah, he does mention he's got this big thing that he, like, moves it up and down for different numbers. At the end of it, he's like, I just took a year off your life. Now, please tell me how you feel. He's like, so the Count's big thing is he's like investigating and studying pain.
Yeah.
And he even at one point is like, tell me, how do you feel? And remember, this is for posterity's sake, so please be specific. I'm like, you are literally killing him.
Yeah.
And you're like, if you could please be descriptive of what I'm doing to you, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Fucking love it. So there is a scene after this that is such a small scene, but holy shit, it's so funny. There's a character named Yellen, who he's kind of like the head of the guard, but also the head of the spy network. Fuck it. Whatever. I'll take it. He gets 2 or 3 very funny scenes, but he comes in to the prince's study and he's like, you summoned me. And he's like, yes. And then he stands there and then the prince, like, almost annoyingly gestures for him to come closer. So Yellen goes over to his side, kneels down, puts his hands on the arm of the chair. They both look down at him. He moves his hands and the prince puts his arm on. It's one of those things, like, it's just these small funny things that the comedic timing for all of them is so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, he tells him that because his plan for Humperdinck at this point, he's going to strangle her in their bedroom, basically on their wedding night.
Yeah.
So he's telling homeboy, I need you to make sure to bring in the guard. I've heard that this other country I'm trying to frame, he doesn't say it that way, but this other country I'm trying to frame is going to send people to kill. And the guy's like, I've heard no reports of that. And he's like, well, believe me, trust me. But it's just the comedic timing for that is very funny. Yeah. He's got another really good moment later on with the gate key. Yeah. But yeah, the scene with Yellen is easy. It's short. You do get a scene also, basically the same scene, where Buttercup comes in and says something about, I don't want to marry you. I'd rather kill myself. And he's like, tell you what, how about you write 4 letters? Yeah. I will take my 4 fastest ships. I'll send them every direction and it'll find Wesley. And if he comes to you before our wedding day, then you can have him. You can be with him, blah, blah, blah. But if not, then please consider me a viable substitute or other option for suicide. Yeah. Like the way he says it, I'm like, that's a pretty good line.
Yeah.
So yeah, she has sent the letters. He's of course bullshitting.
Yeah, he just tears them up because obviously we know Wesley is in the pit of despair.
Yeah.
He
He does tell Yellen as well. I've even in rewatching this, I'm not 100% sure about the plan where he like has Yellen clear out the thieves' forest. That's where
yeah,
I'm not 100% sure what the reason for that was. It's almost like when you watch, I know Robin Hood usually does it really well, where it's like
Yeah.
the village of people that just sort of set up in the woods. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So he sends Yellen there to clear everyone out, and they're like, "We're getting everyone. Is there anyone left?" And one guy's like, "Well, there's a Spaniard giving us a problem." Dude, Inigo is drunk off his ass.
yeah.
Literally cannot stand.
Yeah, he's come back at this point to the place where it all started because at some point earlier in the movie, Vizzini had told him to come back where it all started.
Yeah, like if we ever get split up, go back to the beginning.
Yeah,
So he's there and he's just like, "I need Vizzini, blah, blah, blah. I'm drunk. I'm the main character." And he doesn't say that. I said that.
yeah. One of Yellen's guys comes up to him, and he's trying to clear out Inigo, and he basically threatens him like, "If you won't go on your own, I'll have one of my brutes."
Yes, and he literally goes like, "Brute, you grab him." And then you just see like Andre's the Giant's hands pick up Inigo, and you immediately know, and Inigo like looks at his hand,
Yeah.
looks up, and it's like, "Oh, Fezzik," and you're just like, "Oh, so sweet. They're such good friends."
Yeah,
And then Andre just fucking knocks that one dude
Yeah,
out
he
like
knocks-
it's nothing.
yeah. He knocks out the guy and is like, "Yeah, we're teaming up now."
But then he takes him inside, and then he's telling Fezzik is telling Inigo about the death of Vizzini and about the six-fingered man. How did he obtain this information? It's not like he's sneaking anywhere to find this out.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe he was a part of the brute squad that was hired by Yellen's men. So
Yellow's
maybe,
just going around, "This six-fingered man has paid us to..."
well, maybe he picked things up in casual conversation as
Yeah,
people were,
you know
like,
what?
sitting
Honestly,
around
this is
and
one of those
stuff like
moments where it's kind of like, how? But it's
Yeah.
fine.
that. It's fine.
It doesn't
matter.
bother, because we don't see him for those few days.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Maybe he did sneak in. I don't know.
So-
There is a very funny thing where, so they're like planning how to get in, and Inigo is like, I can't get in. I need Vizzini's mind. No, I need the mind of the person who outsmarted him. I need the man in black. And he goes to like leave, and Fezzik's like, "You don't know where he is." And he goes like, "Don't bother me with trifles." That is literally the thing. You
Yeah.
need this. You don't have this. You don't have the thing. It's just so fucking. Don't bother me with trifles.
In the midst of this, there's also a great little montage.
Oh my God,
where
yes.
where Fezzik is trying to sober up Inigo, and he's just dumping
Yeah,
him
dunking
from,
his
like,
head.
hot water to cold water and back again.
And then finally Inigo's like, okay, I'm good, I'm fine. And if you don't know what Inigo looks like in the long hair, he's like throwing his wet hair out of his face.
So yeah, don't bother me with trifles. They walk off, and then
Oh my God. The next like little scene, just there's one thing that really fucking pisses me off, because there's a small scene where the prince is in his office like sharpening his knife.
yeah,
He's not using a whetstone. It's just a rock. I was like, "Bro, you're gonna have the dullest, most chipped fucking knife. He's gonna use this later, and it's gonna get stuck in his sheath because he's broken his knife. It's stupid, but it's whatever. It's not an important scene. It's a
The-
random little scene. It is literally him at his desk, and Buttercup comes in and is like,
Yeah.
"Anything from Wesley? No."
that's the important part, is that she comes in. She's trying to figure out if they've heard anything about Wesley yet.
Yeah.
And she kind of deduces from the prince's answers that he
Yeah.
never actually sent off the letters. And so she's gonna go unalive herself. This is when the prince locks her in her room.
Yep.
Right.
He follows her down the hallway, locks her in her room. I gotta say, she does a really good job of getting her dress out of the doorway in time. Like,
Yeah.
she had to walk in and just like swish that thing around the door.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Fuck it, fuck Wesley, fuck everything." He goes to the pit of despair, fucking charges in, grabs that lever, and the dude's been slowly doing up like he puts it right up at 50.
Yeah. He puts it at the highest level.
Yep.
And just
And the count immediately is like, "Not 50." This scene is fucking horrific.
Yeah.
When it's the long, like the out camera shot, and you see the machine, and it's just going, and that scream noise of Wes, it is
Yeah.
terrifying. And Wesley's screaming so loudly, like the whole fucking kingdom is hearing it.
Yeah.
And Inigo even's like, that's the Man in Black. And Fezzik's like, how do you know? And he's like, he lost his love, and that's the sound of true despair.
Yeah.
He's like, my heart made that sound when my father died. And you're like, fuck, damn it, dude. Fuck the writer of this movie. He set the bar too fucking high for us mere mortals.
Yeah, so this is how Fezzik and Inigo managed to find where the general direction of Wesley is. But they don't quite find how to get in
they're
yet.
close.
We've kind of skipped over it.
Oh, fuck, the fucking albino.
There's a character called the albino who is kind of the keeper of the Pit of Despair.
Yeah.
He kind of gives Wesley a little bit of backstory before the Count starts to use the device on him.
It doesn't really
matter.
matter.
It doesn't matter much. The only purpose that his character really has is at this moment because he comes wheeling a wheelbarrow
for Wesley's dead body, because we
for
should say that
Wesley,
Wesley is dead at this point.
Yeah, Wesley's dead. Because,
I'm sorry, only mostly dead.
Yes. So he's bringing a wheelbarrow towards the Pit of Despair, and the Pit of Despair has this secret entrance that's in a tree, which is...
Yeah, you like push a button, the door opens, and you go down the tree. And it's in the middle of the fucking woods.
Yeah, so Inigo and Fezzik are kind of in the general area waiting, and they can't find the entrance to where the pit is, where Wesley's cries were coming from. So...
They knock out the albino.
They knock out the albino.
So they know they're in the area.
They know they're in the right area. So then this is where that shot that I was talking about earlier.
This is where it hit me. I'm like, he's the main character. He is the main fucking character of this movie. So Inigo Montoya has been on a 20-year revenge trek for his father. He has the sword that more or less kind of caused his father's death, that was made by his father. And yeah, he draws the sword, and he has a moment where he's like praying to the sword, and he's like, Father, I'm trying to accomplish this. Please help me, guide my sword.
Because he's kind of almost given up hope, and his last-ditch effort is to call upon his father's spirit to show him how to get to where he needs to go. So we have that beautiful shot I was talking about where the camera's slowly coming down, leaning up. The sun is back behind him like a halo. There's all these kinds of little streams of light coming through the forest. And then he just starts slowly moving around.
You almost think for a second it's a setup for a joke.
Yeah.
He almost trips over the cart. And I was like, no, please no.
Yeah. But he actually manages to find the tree. And for a moment, it doesn't actually work.
Yeah, his sword like bends against the tree. He opens his eyes and he's just like,
oh no. And he falls against
he like
tree.
leans up against it and he accidentally hits the fucking button and opens the door.
Yeah.
It is so fucking funny. But it's just, he's the main character. I'm telling you, dude. Like, especially watching it this time, that moment is when I was like, dude, he has like so much character development. He has such a great backstory. He is the one that gets the big fight at the end. It's not Wesley. Wesley does not have a big fight at the end. Wesley spends the last 30 minutes of this movie kind of fucking useless from a physical standpoint.
Yeah.
He's the main character. I'm telling you, fucking main character.
So Fezzik and Inigo get Wesley's body out of the Pit of Despair. They bring it back.
Yeah, they do have a moment where they're in there and they're like, what now?
What do we do?
Like,
he's dead.
Yeah, like he's supposed to be the brains for all this. I can't do this without him. And then Inigo looks at Fezzik and is like, do you have any money? He's like, a little bit. And he's like, well, I hope you have enough for a miracle. Oh, okay. So then they, grab his body and leave. And the scene where they're going down to the cottage and he's carrying, I don't know if Andre the Giant is actually carrying Cary Elwes or if it's like a puppet or something.
Yeah.
It looks like he's carrying a sack of flour. Like he's carrying a full grown ass man and it looks like he's holding nothing.
And this is where we get to, Bradley's most favorite scene, as you'll recall from earlier in the episode.
There is a very funny part and a very funny delivery here where they knock on the door, it opens, and it's Billy Crystal in a shit ton of very like goblin-esque looking makeup and stuff, and he looks like a grumpy old man. And there's back and forth, back and forth. They let him in. He's like, I've never been paid so little for a job. It would have to be a noble cause. And he goes and like they lay Cary Elwes' body up there. He grabs his arm and drops it, and it does the plop of the, you know, he's obviously dead. He pauses for a second, and goes, nah, I've seen worse. That's the part where I'm like, that's funny.
Yeah, so the noble cause thing, taking the little bit of money, Inigo first tries to be like...
Yeah, it's his wife is out of work, his kids are hungry, or his wife's sick or something. Yeah. And the guy's like, really? That's the best lie you come up with?
Yeah.
And then he immediately, I'm on a revenge quest of my father for 20 years, and blah, 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 blah. He has to help me.
Yeah.
And then Billy Crystal's like, nah, your first lie was better. See, that's the funniest part of that scene. Both things I just mentioned in the first maybe minute of this scene. Everything from here is downhill.
So, anyway, Miracle Max, which is Billy Crystal's character, used to work for Humperdinck. He got fired. He was sort of a magic man, I guess, or a wizard of some sort. He has the ability to bring Wesley back because, as he points out, Wesley is only mostly dead, not completely. So he takes a bellows and actually inflates Wesley's body.
Oh my god.
And he pushes on Wesley's stomach to deflate him, and somehow that causes Wesley's mostly dead body to sink.
He asks, like, what reason do you have for living?
Yeah, and Wesley says, true love.
And they're all like, oh, true love. And Billy Crystal's character's like, nah. He said, like, to Blythe, which everyone knows means to bluff.
Yeah.
And then his fucking cranky-ass wife runs out of the back, nah, you lie! And then I don't know what happens after that. I don't give a shit about the rest of this scene. I'm already uninvested at this point.
Basically, Miracle Max and his wife have a back and forth where they bicker a little bit, and...
They bicker how much? It's like 3 minutes.
They bicker for a little while.
A while.
And then, eventually, Max agrees to help, and he gives him the pill.
And they coat it in chocolate. And she's like, the chocolate helps it go down. This fucking pill is huge. It's like, I don't even know, like a ping pong ball, but it's almost shaped like a lima bean. Like, it's a big ass fucking pill.
So, drops the pill down,
and yeah, they do have the comedic thing about it takes at least 15 minutes to really set in. Also, don't go swimming for an hour after you take it. So then they, thank him. They leave. They give him the pill, and they're like, how long does it take to have it? His eyes are open. They're like, oh shit, okay, immediately. And it's so funny. He's like, who are you? Who am I? Have at you. And he can't move. Yeah. And then Wesley's like, who are you? Are we friends? And fucking Inigo has a great moment. He's like, okay, let me tell you everything that's happened. Okay, that's too much. Let me sum up everything that's happened. It is so fucking funny.
Yeah, so Wesley's paralyzed currently from the waist down because he's been like dead.
And another thing we're talking about earlier about him giving the best looks in this movie, there's a moment where I think they talk about like fight or something, and Andre the Giant is to the right of Cary Elwes, and he's like, what do you think? Do you think you can help? And he just like makes a big as he turns his head towards him and is just like, no.
Cary Elwes' physical acting in this particular sequence of the film is just
so good,
phenomenal.
It is so good, and it's so simple. It's just funny and it's goofy.
Yeah,
they come up with a plan of what they're gonna do. There are no longer 30 men guarding the gate. Now there's 60, and he's like, I can only do it if I have this cloak. And then Andre the Giant like reaches in his coat clothes and pulls it out. He's like, would this work? And that's where they have the moment like, where did you get that from? Oh, I tried it back on at Max's, and it fits so well, he said I could keep it.
But it doesn't matter anyway, because we don't have a wheelbarrow. If I had a wheelbarrow, we could do something.
Wait, what happened to that wheelbarrow the albino had? I think we left it on top of the albino. Well, why didn't you
list that amongst our assets?
You listed our full assets, and you didn't mention the wheelbarrow? It's funny. It's just bitching back and forth.
Yeah, it's great.
They have a great scene as well, where they're like, okay, we're going to do this. And it's like, all hands in. And he puts his hand in. Fezzik puts his hand in, and freaking Wesley is like throwing his whole body, and then like on the third attempt, his fucking hand flops up and lands. Dude, it's so fucking funny. Again, just the comedic timing in this, it is so fucking good.
So then they start to formulate the plan. We go back to the wedding. This is where the famous Archbishop does his marriage.
Oh god.
thing. Like, it's one of the most famous things
Yeah.
from this movie.
When in rewatching it, when the camera pans up to him, you think it's going to be a serious thing.
Yeah.
Like, they play it very straight until he opens his mouth, and you're like, damn, they got me.
Yeah. So they kind of intercut between the wedding and then
You can hear it in the background. Like,
Yeah.
where they are, you can hear the stuff going on outside.
And so this is where they enact the plan. They take like this huge cart.
It's a weird plan.
The wheelbarrow. There's this huge thing. Basically, it's turning Fezzik into like a giant pyre scarecrow kind of thing. And they just wheel him in. They set him on fire. He's giving this monologue about he's the Dread Pirate Roberts and trying to freak everybody out. All the troops scatter. Yellen tries to get into
the little portcullis.
The portcullis and drop everything down.
Yeah,
And-
as they drop the gate, and he goes like, Fezzik, the portcullis, and fucking, he runs up and grabs it before it closes and lifts it. And poor Yellen is just there, just shitting himself.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, I just saw this dude open a portcullis right in front of me.
Yeah. So they corner Yellen at the door.
Oh my god, it's so fucking funny.
And Yellen, it's been made to the point earlier. He and Humperdinck had a conversation when they were making the final preparations for the plan, and he said, "I have the only key to the door." So
And it's like around his neck. He's like, I'm the only one with a gate key. And then this one, they're like right up at him, and they're like, and he goes like, "Give us the gate key." And he's like, "What gate key?" And then he goes like, "Fezzik, tear his arms off." "Oh, you mean this gate key?" Like, he immediately pulls it out. I'm telling you, dude, Yellen, he's not in the movie long, but damn,
No.
he's so funny.
nearly every line he has is funny in some way.
Yeah, every movement he has is so good.
Um,
Yeah, so Carrie Elvis's body is not working at this point, so
No.
they're just like dragging him around.
Yeah.
Like he's just a puppet at this point.
yeah, Wesley is basically nothing. They get through the gate. They go into the castle. At this point, the ceremony is pretty much done. With all the commotion outside, the prince basically was like, "Hey, let's jump to the end of this thing."
Yeah, he also sent the Count off to investigate. So the
Yeah.
Count took a few men and left.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the next thing that we see intercut with the marriage scene is upstairs, the six-fingered man, which is the Count. He's got 4 men with him, and he sees Inigo, Fezzik, and fucking poor Wesley being drugged like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah.
And he says something like, "Kill the first 2 and he says the dark one. I'm not quite sure if that's supposed to be a Spaniard thing or if it's because Wesley's in
Yeah.
black. I'm not quite sure which one
I'm
that
not
is.
sure which one they're
But he's like, just kill them. And these 4 dudes charge, and dude, Inigo takes them out like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And then he gives, I think, the first, "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And he's like, got his sword up. And the Count like starts to, and then just turns around and fucking yeets out of the fucking thing.
And it's
He
funny
takes off,
as
and it
hell.
is so fucking funny. You're like, okay, that's not where and Inigo's just,
Yeah, Inigo just powers right after him and is like, and Fezzik is just like,
yeah,
What am I
Fezzik's
gonna do?
holding him like, what am I supposed to do?
the Count goes through a door, locks it behind him, and Inigo's just trying to ram the
Dude,
damn
and
thing.
yeah, he's like jumping into fucking Manny Patinkin, man. I gotta give it to him. He
Yeah.
is coming off that floor, jumping into that door.
Yeah.
And he's
And
like, "Fezzik, I need you." And Fezzik's like, "I can't leave him alone. I gotta chase him." And so he like takes Wesley, and there's a big suit of armor with like its arms crossed in front of it, and he kind of like,
He just drapes his arm.
yeah, like ploops him into the arms, so he's like hugging the crotch of this suit of armor. Fucking Fezzik goes down the hall, goes up to the door, and just palms the top of it, and hinges and everything. It just falls in, and Inigo takes
just-
off.
And then Fezzik goes back.
Yeah,
to
Fezzik goes
recollect
back to where Wesley
and
is, and
Wesley's gone.
he's just like, Fezzik's so adorable. He's just like looking around, like, where did he go? Where could he have gone? And then we get fucking there is a little intercut scene that's actually really fucking sad, where the king and queen, so not the prince,
Yeah.
the king and queen are escorting Buttercup back to her room, and he's like, "Oh, it was a nice wedding." And she's like, I want to thank you. You've always been kind to me, and I want you to know we're never going to see each other again because I'm going to kill myself. And he's like, "Oh, wouldn't that be nice?" Like, he is so fucking senile. But she like kisses him on the cheek, and he's like, "Oh, wouldn't that be nice?" Looks at his wife and is like, "She gave me a kiss." It's so darkly comedic.
Yeah.
But man, then
then-
you get the best fucking scene of this movie. I have watched this scene 100,000 fucking times. He's the main character. Inigo fucking big dog of the movie.
Yeah, you get a few little chase.
Yeah, he somehow.
shots.
This is where I'm like,
And-
how did he catch up to him? Did
Yeah.
the other dude take a smoke break on the other side of the door or something?
Probably. You get a few chase scenes. Inigo's closing in on the Count. And the Count stops in like a big dining hall area
Yeah.
and draws a little pot.
Yeah, he reaches into his boot and pulls out a dagger, and Inigo charges down the stairs, and as he gets to the bottom, he fucking tomahawks that knife at him, gets him right in the gut.
Yeah.
And Inigo immediately is like, I'm sorry, father, I failed. And you're just like, no, Inigo, no. And then Inigo summons his Super Saiyan Jedi powers. This is some of the coolest fight shots I've ever seen in a movie. So it's like a lot of things kind of one after another for the fight.
Yeah.
So he says who he is. He tells him, I'm Inigo Montoya. You know, you killed my father, prepare to die. He doesn't quite get into the line delivery yet, but now he's like, I remember you. You're that Spaniard boy that I taught a lesson to all those years ago. And the Count specifically says to him that you have an overdeveloped sense of vengeance. And that's another one of those, fuck, that's a good line.
Yeah.
So that he goes to finish off Inigo, and he goes to stab him in the chest. Inigo still has a sword. He like just doesn't move any bit of his body except his hand with his sword, and deflects it into his shoulder. And then the Count like coils back, tries again, puts it into his other arm. So now he's been stabbed in both of his arms, and I will say this is one of the few times in the movie, might be the only time you see blood.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's bleeding pretty good. That's not true. Wesley earlier gets bloodied fighting the rat and the fire. But he is fighting, and now it's like it's seamless. You can tell Inigo is just he's fucking in the zone, man. And this is where he starts. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. My name is, and he says it again. And by the third time, he's like, my name is Inigo and the guy's like, stop saying that. And it is clear, dude, they are not in the same league.
Yeah.
Inigo is so much better of a swordsman than he is.
Yeah.
And he gets him up to, he's kind of like, the Count is leaned up against the main table, and Inigo cuts his cheeks exactly where he cut him.
Yeah.
And he's like, promise me money, promise me power. And the guy's like, of course, whatever you want, I'll give you anything you want. And as he goes to like do his last hit, fucking Inigo stabs him right in the chest and is like, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. And he's the main fucking character. Fucking tell me I'm wrong. You shitting me? That fucking line towards the end? Dude, fucking Oscars. Give him Oscars. Go back. This movie came out in 87? No, fucking greatest film line of all time. It's so fucking good, dude. It's, oh my God. Offer me money, offer me power, offer me everything I could ever want. I want my father back, you son of a bitch. Let's go! Fucking love this shit. Inigo's so good.
It's a great cathartic moment, a real hero moment, and it's so satisfying to see Inigo finally get that after all this time.
Yeah, and it's such a well choreographed, and not just the fight choreography, but the blocking of it, the way that they move around the room, his delivery on the lines as he's getting more and more intense as he goes.
Yeah.
His fighting is getting more aggressive as he goes, and it's just so well done. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And then we do cut back to, oh wait, the prince is somewhere, right?
Yeah, well,
We do have Buttercup goes into the room and
Buttercup gets to her room. She locks the door behind her.
wow, she closes the door.
Or she closes the door behind her, and she goes immediately to her desk to try to grab her little dagger or knife.
You say little, it's a pretty damn good sized dagger.
So, and she's going to, stab herself right in the chest. And this is another great line.
Oh my God, I knew you were going to talk about this line. I did not write this one down, but it is a good line.
So Wesley has somehow made his way into the
He's in
room.
her, yeah,
He's
her
on
room,
bed.
laying on the bed.
And he right before she is going to plunge the dagger into her chest, he just says, "There's a shortage of perfect breasts in the world. It would be a shame to damage yours."
Yep. And then she's like, "Oh my God, Wesley," and jumps on him and just like starts kissing. I'm like, there's shit going on right now. Maybe do this later.
Yeah, and she's telling him about everything that happened and how she got married, but she didn't want to, and all that. And he gives her a loophole that's kind of...
Yeah, he's like, "Did you say I do? No, then you didn't."
Yeah, then you didn't. But I heard the words. I heard him say the words. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And isn't that right, Your Highness?
Yeah, and he's
And-
like, well, that's
and-
something that can be quickly remedied.
Yeah, the prince has come in through the door, and then they have their standoff. And
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about earlier. Prince Humperdinck, he draws his sword and he is ready to go to town. And as he goes towards Wesley, Wesley's like, not to the death, to the pain. And it's just like this back and forth. You can,
to the pain.
yeah, you can. I'm not familiar with this phrase. You can tell he's full of shit. You can tell he is just.
But he sells it.
He
so.
does. And he's like, I'm going to cut off your feet below the ankles. I'm going to cut off your hands below the wrist. I'm going to cut off your nose. And then the prince is like, oh, let me guess. My tongue too. He's like something like, I'll just kill you better next time. And then he like starts in on Wesley again. And Wesley like starts in immediately. And then he's like, I will take out your left eye. Then I'll take out your right eye. And then let me guess, you're going to cut off my ears? No! I'll leave you your ears so that you can hear all the horrified screams of all. I'm saying this voice in a much rougher voice than he uses.
Yeah.
But he's basically like, I will leave your ears so you can hear the screams and cries of every person and child who sees you for the rest of your life. And those screams, you can cherish yourself. And you're just like, fuck.
Yeah.
I wouldn't fuck with him. And then the guy's like, and he's, I think Cariel was even says like, but of course I could be bluffing. I might be saying this because I don't have the strength to get off this bed and fight you right now. But am I?
And then Humperdinck hesitates for just a moment, and
Yeah, Wesley
manages to stand up on his own power. He's struggling.
Yeah, but he sells it very well, and he holds up the sword. It's Yellen's sword, by the way. I
Yeah.
noticed that this time that it's his sword, and he points the sword at him, and he says like, "Drop your sword." Clang. Prince's like, "Fuck this, I'm done."
Now sit in that chair.
Yeah.
And the prince just goes and sits in the
He like runs to the chair. He looks like an excited kid going to sit in the chair.
and Wesley has Buttercup tie him up, and then Wesley like collapses.
Like, yeah, fucking
back down.
collapses. And she's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "I don't really have the strength to stand." And Prince Humperdinck is like, "Ha! I knew you were bluffing." And like, he sounds so happy. Bro, you lost. But he sounds so fucking happy about it. And then Inigo comes in, you know, the main character. He comes back. He comes in the room. He's like, "Do you want me to finish him off?" And Wesley's basically just like, "Nah, he's fine."
Yeah.
And then-
he'll live with his shame for the rest
Yeah.
of his days.
And then he's like, "Where's Fezzik? I thought he was with you. I thought he was with you."
And then Fezzik calls out.
Inigo.
Yeah.
And then they go over to where he is. He's like, I was he kind of was just wandering
He was
around and found the stables.
Yeah, and he brought 4 white horses with him.
Yeah,
and-
none of them with saddles,
yeah.
which they ride them here in a minute. I'm like, I feel like that would be very difficult to do. You ever
Okay.
ridden a horse?
No, but fairy tale.
It does not look easy.
But yeah, so Fezzik has the horses. Buttercup just yeets herself out.
Dude,
of the-
seriously, there's no conversation about, hey, are you going to catch me? Nothing.
Yeah.
She jumps. There's a bit of a slow motion shot. He catches her. And then we go back up to Inigo, the main character, and Wesley, the secondary main character. I'm going to say it every time. And then he's like, Inigo says, I've been on a vengeance run for 20 years. I don't really know what I'm going to do after. And at that point, Wesley's like, you ever thought about piracy? I think you'd make a great Captain Roberts. Captain Roberts. And then they both jump at the same time. How the fuck does Andre catch both of them? They jump at the same time.
You don't even know that they were caught by Andre. I kind of
One of them doesn't have a functioning body, and one of them got stabbed 3 times.
I honestly just kind of wonder if they just landed on the horses somehow.
The horses are very far away.
Well-
I thought about that too.
Well, maybe they brought him closer at that point.
Fairy tale.
I don't know. Fairy tale, exactly. They all wind up on the horses. Wesley's strong enough to sit on the horse and ride it off by himself. So they all ride off into the sunset.
Yep. And that's really it. And then the grandfather closes the book. Or they go to Wesley and Buttercup go to kiss, and then he stops, and the grandson's like, "Wait, that's where it ends?" He's like, "Well, I thought you didn't want to hear about the kissing." He's like, "Well,
I don't mind so much.
yeah, maybe it'll be okay this time."
It's a nice little callback because during one of the interludes earlier in the movie, the grandson interrupts and complains about it being a kissing book again. And the young grandpa says, "You might not mind so much eventually." And so at this point, he's like, "I don't mind so much." So it's a nice little writing parallel there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the grandpa gets up to leave and says, "Okay, you need to get your rest." He leaves, and the grandson says, "Grandpa, maybe you can come back and read it to me again tomorrow." And the grandpa responds with, "As you wish."
Yep.
And that's how we close the movie.
And everyone cheers for the main character, Inigo Montoya. And dude, if somehow you're one of the 5 people in the world that has not seen this movie, go watch it. Cannot possibly recommend this movie enough.
I have to imagine if you're listening to this, you've seen it at least once at this point.
I imagine if you exist and have a pulse, you've seen this movie at least. To be fair, though, when you said a year and a half, I actually did not see this until probably my last year of college.
Yeah.
My friend Rachel in college was obsessed with this movie, which I understand why. And I had heard about it, never gotten around to watching it.
Yeah.
And then I watched it then, and then maybe a couple years later, watched it again, watched it with my mom.
Yeah, just one summer on a day off from work, I was just like, I want to watch something new that I've never seen before, and The Princess Bride was on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, hey, I'm gonna watch that. It was great. Then I decided to watch Willow right after. So
I was like, don't you trash talk Willow.
Willow was good.
I love that movie too.
I think I specifically remember messaging you.
I was gonna say that is a very common double feature. Those 2 movies?
I think I specifically remember messaging you after I watched them, and I said something like, "Man, we need more big budget. Not even big budget. We need more like true fantasy films.
Yeah.
To be made in Hollywood. Problem is, they don't make money.
Yeah.
Anymore. Like even unfortunately, the Willow TV series that Disney Plus made got completely just removed from Disney Plus altogether.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not on Disney Plus anymore.
Motherfucker, I never got around to watching it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
But Hollywood just doesn't want to take the risk on making a true like fantasy movie like a Princess Bride or a Willow anymore.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. I mean, I get why, because what did you say the budget was?
The budget was around $15 million,
15
and
million.
the box office was around 30.
Yeah, so it basically just made its money back.
Yeah.
And that was in 1987. So, and outside of something like The Lord of the Rings, we don't really get big fantasy anymore.
No.
Like nobody's willing to take that risk.
Not movies.
I'm
Some TV shows.
Yeah. TV has been more of that range these days. You had like Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and Vikings and stuff like that. That was more in that line now.
Mm-hmm.
But even that's not like the same as what this is in terms of fantasy. I want more of that.
They just don't make them. They just don't make them like they used to.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I get that. I really meant what I said earlier about some of these older movies. Sometimes there's just something. There's just some type of magic there. There's just something that you just don't quite get the same way anymore.
And I know there had been some talks back in like 2018, 2019 about like maybe remaking this movie. Like I said, there's just no way you could.
Don't. Don't.
This is just that magic in a bottle you can only capture once.
Yeah.
You're never going to be able to make it as good as this.
No.
I don't care if you have one of the great working directors working on it. I don't care if you have the great screenwriter working on it. It's just not going to work anymore.
Nope. But yeah, so that is Princess Bride from 1987. Let us know what you think. Obviously, we both thoroughly enjoy this film.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell that we both really love this movie, then you're just...
Yeah, I mentioned a little earlier, I was like, I think this might be the most positive movie we've recorded an episode for both of us so far.
Yeah, we've been pretty positive overall with most of the stuff that we've watched, with a couple of exceptions.
Yeah.
Obviously, we were both not exactly down for Gladiator 2.
I was thinking of Banshees of Inisherin.
I was going to say, you were much more down on Banshees than I was.
Yeah, you love it.
I don't love it. I like it. I think it's...
You don't love it. You made me watch that movie. I had to watch Brendan Gleeson bite his fingers off, and you don't even like that movie or love that movie? Fuck you.
Look, we talked about it then. I figured it would be right up your alley, black comedy and all that.
That's fair.
But
Honestly, like we were talking about earlier, for some reason my mom doesn't like this movie. Sometimes everything on paper can be good, and it just doesn't hit. It just doesn't work for you.
yeah, I watched I watched a movie that was recently nominated for Best Picture the other day that I was just like, why?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say which movie right now, but uh, I just don't get it. But obviously, it hit with a lot of other people. There's plenty of people who love it. Art is subjective.
Yeah.
We like what we like, and we don't what we don't.
Yep. But yeah, those are our thoughts about The Princess Bride. Let us know yours. And in the meantime, I'm Bradley.
And I'm Brendan.
And this has been Story Proof.